Nihilister, the character that holds the crown as the most disappointing release to date, that release being over 2 years ago now. A phenomenal design representing the red dragon that terrorized the surface for decades was left to the scraps. A powerful villain that could actually be obtained in-game for free. That's right, no standard banner or gambling for this one as long as you completed mundane tasks for months on end. But as we'll see, this combo of a tedious unlock process and an underwhelming combat kit led to widespread disappointment and community backlash. It was so bad and poorly implemented that the developers abandoned the liberation system entirely, and Nihilister herself has been absent from the story since. From Desolator of the Land to Forgotten Meme, this is the story of Nihilister. Nihilister was never available through normal gacha pulls. Instead, after completing Chapter 20 and other story requirements, players had to run a new Liberation mode daily to earn points towards her unlock. This mode wasn't exactly new, as 3 other units came before her that were also obtained through daily tasks. The community received the initial 3 relatively well. 2 units were objectively better than the last, but in general, it wasn't a bad idea to have SSR units that players could unlock for free. Then came along Nihilister. She completely dumpstered the others in comparison just in hype alone. And I do mean that, just in hype. You mean, out of nowhere, we could unlock a playable heretic, one of the main villainesses of the game at the time, put her in a squad and canonically flirt with her? I, like many others, could not wait. This is one hot mama with some of the coolest designs that arguably trumps anything we have today. I mean, just look at how cool this character is. Could be. Look how cool this character could be. Unfortunately, the hype died as quickly as it came. As quickly as I came, as more information about the character started to come out. First off, she cost far more than the earlier units. Data miners showed that Nihilister required about 5,400 points, whereas other units like Guilty only needed 3,600. In practical terms, this meant roughly 3 months of straight grinding daily quests dedicated solely to Nihilister. The others took only about 2 months. This includes having to spend premium currency to refresh the wipeout, which most free-to-play players did not do. So, if you were like me and kept getting this shitty quest, Nihilister took even longer. The consensus was that unlocking this heretic was a marathon grind and that few new or casual players could easily complete. But you know what? Fair enough. It's a free heretic, for crying out loud. There should be a grind for Nihilister. She's probably going to be so powerful and so worth it. No, she wasn't.
Son, come closer.
Yes, Dad?
Before you take over my business, before you take the mantle of the sales pitch, I need you to remember one thing. Never stop believing in what you do.
I won't forget, Dad.
Good. Until my last breath, I will never stop believing in what I do.
And so I'm proud to introduce once again, Lonely Pillow, the highest quality material of full-size body pillows you will find on the net. Breddy is now officially released. You asked for it, here she is. Using maple 2-way tricot, a step above the industry standard, you can see how smooth and soft the fabric is. The design features 2 different outfits, so simply choose which side fits the occasion. Lonely Pillow is the only trusted source that features Breddy as a Daki. That's right, you can't get this anywhere else. So what are you waiting for? Order now while snuggles last. I know, relying on tier lists to rank a character isn't the best way to go about a game. But when every single tier list you can find, when every top ranking player agrees that the unit is trash and then the devs proceed to put her in the recycling bin, then you know there's some merit here. It was universally agreed that Nihilister was a throwaway unit.
I don't really want this.
A bait that had you coping that a villain so powerful in lore could not possibly be this weak. There's no way, right? Nihilister is a burst 2 sniper. with a, at the time, unique 20-second burst cooldown, but her actual damage output is laughably low. Players and guides quickly noticed that her raw DPS is among the worst in the game. This tyrannical fire-breathing twin-headed dragon of destruction that put even Dorothy and her minions into the ground was just a piece of flaming hot Cheetos in gameplay. In particular, her burst, ironically named Burning Scourge, does very little direct damage. It adds a small burn over time effect like 7 to 10% of her attack for 10 seconds and a +6 ammo buff on her, but otherwise deals no damage. Yes, this is not a joke. Her burst basically deals no damage. We're feeling generous right now, so let's include that the only thing she has going for her kit is the ability to pierce, which only helps on a few select bosses. That's it. While she was one of two of the only fire-coated burst 2 NIKKEs in the game, it wasn't needed. You didn't need her. As you can imagine, since then there has been a significant creep in power, keeping her irrelevance in another dimension entirely. Nihilister does get bonus burst generation, which is decent for PvP, but in PvE she offers essentially no utility or sustained damage, considering that she takes a borderline ridiculous amount of investment to unlock and acquire spare bodies for, which by the way, there's an opportunity cost there. Either you spend your precious at the time Union Raid currency on Nihilister bodies or buy materials to upgrade your cores, which could help your entire team indefinitely. I wonder what the community picked. I cannot stress enough how disappointing it was for our flaming hot Cheetos wife to be built this way. I remember how the community was collectively shocked. Like, how is this even possible? It was disappointment at first, and then it quickly turned to outrage. Lengthy posts on Reddit, 30-minute cope videos on YouTube, and let's not forget the worst one of all, the hesitation of commissions to NSFW artists. I'm kidding, gameplay don't matter to Gooners. Oh, the irony. We saved and grinded for months expecting a powerhouse, a game changer, someone to help clear the main story for us so we could continue reading because back then, we didn't have Red Hood or Siren or Crown. All of that work, only to get a dud. One user writes that spending half a year of dailies to unlock Nihilister to just get a trash tier pilgrim with no bond story is just terrible. Here, bond story means that the personal character story, unlike typical gacha units, Nihilister, Guilty, Sin, and Quincy got their story entirely behind liberation sequences. While the former three got proper one-on-one time with Commander for bonding, Nihilister didn't. She softened her heart a little bit, but it wasn't anywhere near worthy of a bond story. Even Vanilla Dorothy had a better bond story, and she's also classified as a major villain. Actually, come to think of it, the recruitment of Nihilister didn't make a lick of sense to begin with. If you've completed the liberation sequence and watched all of the story, which isn't much by the way, then you would remember that we didn't actually convert her. Not even close. In fact, this whole sequence takes place before we fight her in battle again and defeat her, leaving her behind covered in tarp like a homeless person in LA. I know she's not alone when it comes to lore inaccurate recruitments, but this one is just kinda pathetic. Some of the in-game dialogue here makes little sense chronologically, as if her entire rehabilitation premise was tacked on, making it feel non-canon. Players are forced to run through months of continuous dailies for units that are completely useless. None of the rehab units had long-term use. Others expressed their frustration with Nihilister's kit. Making Nihilister the weakest of the liberation units was a mistake they never forgive. In short, the grind versus payoff ratio was universally deemed as not worth the time. And above all else, as much as I love glazing the developers as the next guy, they never offered an official response or apology. No tweets, no scribbles in the countless patch notes since, no chance for a favorite item. Nothing has been added to Liberation despite the addition of Cinderella or the introduction of Indivilia. Their silence has spoke volumes. Shift Up has essentially ignored her. From this failure came theories. One in particular speculating the decision to scrap her banner and use Liberation instead was purely a play on retention, a way to keep players logged in longer, and that it backfired so tremendously that they called it quits without another word. Finally, her legacy was further tainted when she was cosplayed by an infamous VTuber who was exposed for being a psychopath. Yeah, I didn't think I would go there, huh? Okay, not gonna lie, I almost didn't include this, but it's too much of a coincidence, okay? Today, over 2 years after her release, Nihilister is all but forgotten. Outside of a few dedicated Dragon fans, shouts out to you guys, you know who you are, she's absent from meta and lore. When she is mentioned, it's often accompanied by a drooling copazoid or an insult, players joking that her reason for existing died once Crown arrived at the scene. Her only saving grace is as a final member of the Pilgrim Tower or a PvP burst battery, but even that is far-fetched because, again, it takes over 3 months after you get to chapter 20. You're going to get better units if you're grinding every day. To sum it up, Nihilister became a cautionary tale. She showed how a character can be hyped up by story but tumble down a flight of stairs on execution. I would have much rather obtained Nihilister through normal means with a fun story rather than months of employment for a unit with no impact at all. The question lies then, is this the end of Nihilister? Has she truly been forsaken by the devs like you said, Eisen? What will happen to the liberation system? Well, to answer the first two, I think this iteration of Nihilister is dead. There's a non-0% chance they give her a buff of any kind, but where's the money in that, right? Put her in a swimsuit, put her in a bunny outfit, have her come back stronger than ever, and all will be forgiven. As for the third question, myself and many others speculate the final form of liberation will come with the much anticipated arrival of the 4 beasts. I expect it to be a completely different grind and far more story focused, and if not, then, well, you can safely call it dead.